Hey guys, I'm Paul Rivera Jr. and we are here to cover this actual particular Countach that was previously owned by Carlos Cavazo, guitar player of Quiet Riot, now belongs to Rusty Spragg over here, and it's being restored by Franco's European Sports Car, which is owned by Franco and Damian Barbuscia. And Damian here is the master mechanic, and Damian, it's okay if you want to wear a mask or not, whatever.
Cool.
It's strange times right now.
Yeah, for sure.
We have a tight circle, though, so I think we got a good distance here. So anyways, we're lucky to have Rusty, the owner, here, and Rusty has become an authority of this particular Countach, when it was made, what model it was, because there's a lot of mystery about this car, right? We thought it said 5000S, it was carbureted, and then modified to be fuel injected, and then now being modified to carburation. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's my understanding when Carlos owned it, he bought it from the original owner. It was for sale at a shop on Sunset Boulevard. I can't recall the name of the shop, but he saw it in the mid 80s at the shop, and he purchased the car. For some reason, when he purchased it, there was issues with him getting it registered, so he had to go through the process of fuel injection. Why when he bought it, it became an issue? Why wasn't it an issue with the previous owner? I don't know. The previous owner was German. He bought it in Italy and then had it shipped out to California. So it's always been, I think, a California car. Anyway, the process that Carlos went through of fuel injection was done at...
Yeah, I do believe it was Filippo that did the fuel injection on it. Which was, at that time was pretty primitive,
Sure.
to say the least. It was a couple of BMW injection systems put together, which I understand why he did that, I could see what he was going for, but it was definitely...
Wait a minute, explain the combination of BMW injections. So that wasn't even a Lamborghini injection system, or they didn't have any at the time? What was that?
Yeah, they did not have any at the time. I think Lamborghini finally came out with an injected car in '85, which was... a CIS, but no, he used it looks like two 6-cylinder, I'm guessing from maybe a 325i or something.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah, so two 6-cylinder BMW fuel injection systems and jammed them together on a V12.
Does that require an ignition computer in any of that?
Well, they have ignition computers, but to make those two systems run independently from each other and try to make a car run cohesively, it never ran right. Let's just say that. It never ran the way it should have ran.
Why was it converted to pass
smog, from what I understand.
It was all emissions.
Yeah.
So it ran beautifully before. It was amazing. And then fuel injection was just, it got it by emissions.
Right. And it's not like injection today where you can go on the computer and just program the perfect ignition timing and injectors. They were just guesstimating, I guess.
Got it. Now, you're going back to carbureted, so tell me, Rusty, first of all, what is this Countach? What model is this, and how do you know and why?
So just my research on running the VIN number, it's my understanding that this is actually the first 500 off the assembly line. There was a famous prototype that was silver and blue for the 500. When they switched from the 400S to the 500S, there was a silver blue prototype that actually was on Bring a Trailer about 3 years ago for $350,000, but I don't know if it's sold. It wasn't really like an auction. It just did like a story on it. And
was that called a periscope?
No. That was the 400 and the 500,
okay,
but not the S.
Got it.
Which is how I think. I've done as much research as possible on this, and there's no explanation to why this particular car was a 500S, and then only 8 cars were 500Ss, and then they switched it to 5000Ss. And then the zero change, no bodywork, no engine work, nothing changed. They just said, now we're calling it the 5000S.
That's crazy. So they're continuing 400, 500. No, let's get to the 5,000.
The only thing I can think of is that it was confusing because the LP 400 and 500 were the periscope, or the 400 was a periscope.
Okay.
And then now they've just made a 500S. So I'm sure they were like, is it the 500 or the 500S? LP, they're both LPs.
So maybe the 5000 was a way to really separate the car? Like, this is a completely different car.
The only thing that makes sense, even though I'm just making that up, but I could just imagine them sitting around and being like, I'm so confused, changing 5000.
Now I see you got 4 Countach books. So you read thoroughly and figured out and tried to figure out everything about this car.
When I got the car, I totally nerded out. I just went and got everything I could, and of course, everything is made. Every book is from the '80s, and like this nice, sweet '80s design.
Show the camera. Oh, that's an album cover. I need that right away.
Exactly. And then look at this one. This one is all Balvino. Balvino or Valentino driving.
Oh, that's so cool.
All the pictures of Valentino. And I actually thought that this was our car or my car in this book. There's a picture, and it's the 500S, and it's a white and red one at the factory.
So that's the 1 out of 8? Or they called that 5,000?
They say it's a 5,000.
Okay.
And it does have a $5,000 decal on the back.
What did this have, 500?
No, it just has a 5.
Wow. That's why we're constantly looking at it going, what the hell is this thing?
Yeah.
Okay, so now, Damian, I also want to I want to let the audience know, because they always see the Countach and they always talk about performance numbers and they always talked about, the exclusivity of it, but it looks like when Damian and his father are tearing it down to restore it, it looks like it's a kit car, man. I mean, I see a roll cage, an amazing, not a roll cage, but what do you call the cage of the chassis? Right?
Yeah, the chassis. Yeah, it is pretty much roll cage. It's a handmade, hand-welded frame, tubular frame.
Tubular frame. Thank you. That's the words I was looking for. It's a totally tubular frame, and then just a cladding of aluminum, fiberglass.
Yeah, and I think maybe the roof on some of the cars are steel. I mean, they did whatever they needed to do.
Yeah, I mean, I look over here and I'm like, oh wait, that's steel there, but there's a little bit of rust, but then not much rust because that's aluminum, and then that's a little steel, and then is this fiberglass right here? This is fiberglass.
Yeah, that's
so
fiberglass.
These are fiberglasses. This is aluminum. Don't dent it. You can see the aluminum right now.
Yeah.
So I guess you could find these cars in a barn find, and they could be totally dilapidated, but the body's not rusted through. It's just some of the pieces of the chassis.
Yeah, I mean, the frame itself is steel. So
Okay.
So there
but
is
thick.
that. Yeah, I mean, you would have to really want to rust it or leave it in the snow or something, I would guess, or in salt air.
For decades.
Yeah.
So right now, in the condition that it's in, what happened? You guys took out the engine, which is on the other side, which I'll show some B footage on, but you took out the engine, you're going to switch it to carburetor. How are you doing that? Where are you getting these carburetor parts, and how does that work? Is this factory or?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to see what we can get. The linkages we'll probably have to get factory if we can. The intake manifolds we'll try to get factory if we can. The carburetors are available. They're Webers. So those are out there.
Those are standard off the shelf Webers? 2-barrel, 4-barrel? What's the specifications?
They're 2 barrels. Yeah, 2-barrel side draft.
How many of those?
There's going to be 6.
6 2-barrels. Okay, side drafts.
So as far as I know, we can still get them. So that will complete getting it back to carbureted. I mean, and we're just going to do a complete rebuild on the engine from top to bottom.
Stock pistons, compression. What do you do? What do you do now? Here's an opportunity to really build it correctly.
Yeah, I would definitely not go. I would not go back to stock in that. I mean, in its form. I mean, it's up to Rusty in the end, but definitely we would go a little higher compression. We'd go lightweight pistons, forged pistons. I mean, why not add performance to the engine while we're in there? And it's going to be nothing that affects the look of the engine. You wouldn't know any different. It's just going to run better. So
sure.
Why not?
Right.
And if we have to
all
do
the VIN
crank,
numbers match, so in terms of collectability, everything is stock on the outside except of you going back to carburetor. But I mean, the meat of this car is a factory car.
Yeah, exactly. It's I think the idea is always to keep it as factory looking as possible, and why not use a modern technology to make it more reliable and more of a driver.
Right.
Well, why not?
You guys recently did a Countach, and I think did you use 10 to 8 compression pistons? Just for your super car nerd that know what that means.
I think we went 11-1 on the compression ratio, and we went quite a bit bigger because that was a 400, so that was a 4-liter engine that we went to. I think about 4.6.
How many liters is this?
This should be a 5-liter, I believe.
Yeah, it's
5-liter factory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is that where the 5 comes from?
Yeah, it's 4,800 cubic
centimeter.
Yeah.
Okay, you spent the money, so you better know your car.
My phone went black, or else I would have my notes.
Oh, got it. Okay.
But yeah, another thing on that note, what is the cutoff for emissions that they don't have to smog the car anymore?
I think
In
it's
California.
77 right now.
What year is this again?
82.
82.
And it is a real 82. I was hoping that it was a little older because I know that it dropped 50 horsepower just on the emissions, regardless of Carlos doing the intake. This was from the factory, that anything that came to America was 50 horsepower less because of the emission control.
Yeah, they probably, I'm assuming they just lowered the compression, so it would use less fuel, you know. all of it.
So you guys are going to do some little tricks here and there and get that somehow past the smile. Hey, look at this white Countach.
Nothing, yeah.
Just kidding. Anyways, tell me more about who penciled this car? Because it looks like it was penciled by George Lucas. Did Star Wars come from the Countach, or did the Countach come from Star Wars?
That's right.
Who was first?
Definitely the Countach was first. It was Bertone, right?
I believe it is. Yeah, Bertone, yeah.
It's Bertone. Yeah. Okay. So it's Bertone for the guys that don't know. Yeah. Like, again, by the time somebody is watching this podcast, they already know the basic specs, but we really wanted to talk about this particular car. So did Carlos have much life with this car? Because I've been coming around here since I was a teenager, and I want to say I've seen this car here at least for 20 years.
I will
say. Am I wrong?
I don't
15?
think it was. I think it was a little bit less than that, right? Maybe 10 or 12 years. Or maybe it was more. Maybe I can't even remember.
20 years.
It was 12,
I was selling you guys oil filters when I was like 17 from Alfa Romeo, and I'm pretty sure I saw it. I'm not sure.
Maybe my mind blocked it out, but it was never a good car for him. I mean, it just wasn't reliable, so it was constantly a problem. The injection was fighting itself. It was never right.
But talk about a rock star car of that time, right?
Look,
what is more rock star?
This is rock star today.
Frickin' Countach. That completely.
Yeah. So back then you're in a whole other stratosphere.
Yeah, I would say that if an Aventador pulled up on the left and the Countach pulled on the right, my head would be glued on the Countach by far.
Absolutely.
It's hard to look away.
Yeah, you're not seeing this every day.
No, and when you see one rolling down the street, you could really feel it and understand why it's so special. It looks like nothing else.
Yeah, this is definitely a childhood dream for our demographic, for our age group. I mean, Rusty, come on. This is a little kid. I mean, isn't this like the pinnacle?
Every single person had this poster on their wall.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So just going back to the Star Wars thing, all the Star Wars geeks are way into the fighters and so forth, and that's what this car is, man. But it actually exists.
Yeah, it definitely has that X-Wing vibe to it.
The X-Wing, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. All those Star Wars guys are going to hate me. Tell me more about this car. So you pulled out the engine. What do you got to do to restore the body? A lot of it's aluminum, but do you need a repowder coat? Do you need a sandblast it? Do you need to do, how do they put the aluminum together? Is it glued together? Is it welded? It's TIG welded? What did they have back then?
Some of it's welded, some of it, but it's riveted mostly. So it's we're gonna go down to the bone. So it's gonna be from here on out sandblasted, and then we're gonna go start from scratch and just build it on the way up.
And you've been repairing Countaches since you were a kid. How are they reliable? How are they as just a car in general? I mean, are they extremely temperamental? They barely run. They're barely put together. Or are they robust?
I would say in a lot of ways they made a lot of improvements from the Miura at that time. And so the frame is pretty robust. The car itself, I would say, is pretty strong and a great handling machine, actually. You got to be the right person and have the right temperament to make it a daily or to try to even drive it a lot. I would say that you can make it reliable, no questions asked. I would say as reliable as you can make a carbureted car. Which is, we will put electronic ignition into all the things that.
But this is not notoriously an oil leaking machine like some of the MGs or British cars or Jags where, the seals were made out of freaking rope and glue. You put it together once.
For the most part, if you put it together right, it'll last you. I mean, there's a lot of them that are still in original condition. The engine's never been rebuilt, that are still running and running strong. So, I mean, if you take care of it, it's definitely not, I wouldn't call it unreliable per se. It's definitely got a lot there to it. And when you do it right, you can make a good car, a solid driver for sure.
Yeah, and my understanding is the more you drive it, the more reliable it is.
Yeah, that is for sure.
When you pull off heads of an old Countach, do you see tons of carbon usually, or any aluminum being eaten away by bad radiator fluid or something? Or
no, I mean the thing that you will see is definitely a lot of carbon. It's running rich
sure.
to be running right. And what you're going to see. If a car hasn't been driven, you're going to see all the typical things. You're going to see a lot of the seals get rotted out and this and that. But the engine themselves are Lamborghini's been running that style of engine since the beginning, since the 350 and 400 GT. So they've just been improving upon it with every sort of generation of cars. So I really like that because they sort of push the technology and they improve all the things that they see are wrong as far as reliability goes. And I think the Countach engine's great. It's got a nice hot rod like sound and just it's beefy. It's nice.
They sound great. And going back to the Miura, you said that this was basically an evolution of the Miura. You had Van Halen's Miura for a decade or more. That didn't you do the fuel injection on that car?
And we did do a fuel injection on that car.
You also put xenon lights. I mean, you took care of that car for a long time.
Yeah, we modernized it a little bit so that it was more drivable because Eddie was a driver.
Right.
He was not a guy that was going to put something on a shelf.
Right.
He got in there and he drove the thing, which is awesome. And that car was a runner. The injection on that one was great. And I would say that car really.
And why did you put an injection on that car? Like going back to the weaknesses, what were some of the weaknesses in the Miura?
I remember the specific story of why you put the injection on that car.
Tell me.
So he called. He was coming down the hill, and he called the shop, and he said, "The car's on fire. Have the door open. Have the fire extinguisher ready." And he came flying around the corner with the car on fire. He came in, and we sprayed it down with the fire extinguisher. And then after that, they put the fuel injection on.
Okay, that's the greatest story on earth. Van Halen flew down here in a Lamborghini Miura that was on fire.
Yes, it wasn't here. It was to his studio. To be more clear about it.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
No,
Sorry.
I want. Yeah, no, we got it. This is seriously needs to be completely, totally factual. Give me exactly what went down with Van Halen's Miura.
As folklore would have it, but that was, so when a car's on fire and because the carburetors are right on top of your spark plugs and ignition wires, and then if it doesn't catch on fire from there, it will catch on fire from the headers that are next to that. So and there's no return fuel line, at least stock on those cars. So you're going to catch on fire. It's not a question of like if it's going to happen. It's just when is it going to happen? Are you ready for it? But
you're telling me you're driving around a carbureted Miura, which a lot of those collectors unfortunately do not drive. So they probably don't get to experience that, right? They drive maybe 50 miles and then put it on a truck and tow it places and win concours awards. But you're telling me if I had a carbureted Miura and I'm driving it all the time, it's a question of when it will definitely catch on fire?
Well, I would definitely do the things to not let it catch on fire, like put a return fuel line, like any.
Okay, if you didn't have that return fuel line, then it's definitely going to happen?
Yeah, well, because if you just leave the key on or too much pressure, your float balls are the only thing holding the fuel from just spilling out of the carburetor and start leaking down the manifolds. It's just a matter of.
Now I know why Niki Lauda got on fire, because there's some Italian voodoo there of just it shouldn't have happened. Okay, anyways, bad joke. So, okay, going back to the Van Halen story. So tell me exactly what went down with the Miura. Even though we're getting off subject of this awesome Countach, this was still belonged to a killer guitar player, so it's kind of in the same vein.
Definitely in the same vein. That's from exactly how you said it. Was the car was on fire. He called, said, "Have a fire extinguisher ready. I'm coming." So he's not stopping, and wants to keep gassing it, right? So he's basically flooring it, from what I understand, running red lights, doing whatever he had to do to get the car back. And
into his studio and to meet you guys, or who had the fire extinguisher?
It was one of his guys at the studio. He was rolling back to his home.
So then he rolls home. Somebody puts it out. The car then comes here. Do you see it burnt?
No, they caught it in time.
They caught it in time. Okay. Do you see any remnants of the fire extinguisher?
There's unfortunately, you have to clean that. But it's right on top, so it's actually not a bad. I mean, if you're gonna catch on fire, I guess not a bad place.
And not a bad car to do it because it's the whole back opens.
Yeah, the whole back open. Yeah, the whole back does open up. Yeah, you're good to go. So at least they had that going for it.
Okay, that's see, cars today to me are extremely boring. They're all automatic. They have autocorrect everything. They're so incredibly fast that it doesn't require a lot of skill to go around a turn fast because you can't lose control. I mean, I have an Alfa Giulia that's it just disturbs the hell out of me that I can't slide the rear end. And maybe I have issues, but this car, unlike a Porsche Turbo back in the day, remember the 930s that people would wrap around poles?
Yeah.
How is this car, Rusty? Like, how does it? Can you lose control in this car too easily, or is it a little more stable?
Very, very stable. It's almost so difficult to drive that it's hard to to lose it because it takes so much focus and effort just to keep it.
So that means you're always so present.
Yes.
Because just freaking going forward, right?
Right.
Just is it a heavy clutch? Is it the shifting? Is it this?
Yes. And the first time I ever drove one, it was from here to Beverly Hills, and I had to go over Coldwater Canyon, and that was
And that was just intense.
That'll test you.
I will never ever forget. I mean, it's probably 25 years ago now, and I still remember every single minute of that drive because of how intense it was.
See, to me, that's therapeutic because you're mastering the bull.
Well, sure, but when you're 22 years old, there's nothing therapeutic about it. You're just not,
It's like, oh my God, I'm going to die. How do I get this
Yeah, exactly.
in one piece? What are your favorite things about driving a Countach? And I know you're a Diablo lover a little more, I suspect, but.
No, I mean, the Countach is great. There's, it is a heavy clutch. It's not the worst. I would say that the satisfaction of driving it smoothly is really rewarding.
Yeah.
You know? It's that's what's so great about it. And to talk about new cars, you can go so ridiculously fast, and you're like, I could be playing a video game right now. I don't know the difference. But when you're in a Countach, just getting a good downshift, just downshifting the second and doing it well is like
right, yes. Lining up the synchros perfectly, getting the sound, getting the blip.
Yeah, that's a win right there. I mean, so they're fun. They're super fun to drive. I mean, you got a blind spot that's going to get you, so you got to kind of.
Yeah, they didn't care about looking behind them. They're just all about.
It was you go
this
for
way.
You pass. That's how
you
know.
pass. Who cares what's behind you?
Yeah, that's how you know who's behind you. You pass them.
Blind spot. There is no.
It's all blind. It's all blind.
It's only forward.
Yeah.
Even the mirrors on the side just rattle. I mean, you can't even see anything.
Look, why have them? Rip them off.
Yeah. Why
I would say it brings back child memories of Cannonball Run, where there was always the Countach and the girls, where all those cars and all those scenes were amazing. And then every time there was the scene with the Countach, it just, to me, that took away from the rest of the movie. It was all about that car.
No, it was ridiculous. Seeing the Countach in that movie, I remember was like, time stopped. Time
did stop, yeah. It's just impressionable then. I don't even remember the rest of the movie except that car.
Yeah.
What else do you need to know?
So, Rusty, are you excited? These guys are restoring it. They've restored many cars. I remember even as a teenager, one of the Daytonas that they restored that was just so freaking incredibly gorgeous, And for some of you guys that don't know, Franco's European sports car, they're definitely the number one in if not the nation, definitely West Coast of just Italian, Ferrari, Lamborghini, Maserati mechanics, and they've been featured on Jay Leno a few times, and they're definitely, a lot of their cars. I mean, they're definitely the rock star car mechanics for sure. They're here in Van Nuys, and you have a ton of the entertainment industry here, and this is where else are you going to go? And where else, especially at your age, Damian, you're fairly young to know how to tune a carburetor in a freaking Miura. Like, you're not going to go to your gas station to get that done.
No, I don't know where you're going to go to get that done anymore. It's a dying breed.
It's a dying breed, right? Even a new Lamborghini dealership. I mean, most of the cars that they're fixing are under warranty, but they probably have no idea what to do with the Diablo transmission, manual Diablo transmission.
Damien,
they probably haven't seen that.
Tell them a little secret that how many dealership cars end up here because they can't figure them out.
It does happen often. I would say they consider Murcielago is becoming old in their eyes. So already Diablo's classic.
Oh, so Diablo's not even on the charts. It's like, oh, Murcielago, darn, I sold it to that guy, but I don't even know how to get it serviced.
Yeah, they don't want to deal with it. And I think already Diablos are like, oh, we have to pull out a book. We don't have it on a computer. So it's already old. And then Countach is like, I don't think many dealers would even touch one at this point.
I can't imagine. I couldn't even.
The liability, I don't know what
bringing it to a Lamborghini dealership wouldn't even cross my mind, honestly.
Right. Most of those mechanics, are these like hard tappets that you need to adjust? They're not hydraulic tappets, are they?
No.
So how many miles? When do you need? Tell me about the service of this car. Is it chain? Is it belt? Is it hard tappets, which are the valve shims?
Yeah,
tell me about it. Tell me about the maintenance of this car. What would that entail?
It's the engine itself is actually well thought out in that respect. It has chains. It does have tappets, which is fine. Hard tappets that you have to adjust. So do the Diablos. So not to the mercy do they.
Every 30,000 miles, 20,000 miles,
I would
you got to check it.
Probably 30,000 miles if you get there. I mean, if you drive it enough, and you would sort of go, all right, if there's noise, then we would do it, or we might get in there, or if you just want to do major service, we'll check them. But it's not something you have to do. But if you drive it and drive it hard, yeah, maybe. I mean, I would consider that to be the least of the maintenance worries of it, you know.
And the chain, do you have to change the chain over a certain amount of years? I mean, I bought a Countach, it's never been serviced in 30 years, the chain's still going to be fine, or is that where you want to?
I would say the chain's more about mileage, unless it's got rust on it or something, or really been in a bad shape. But I would say, I mean, I would go by any other older car. Maybe if you did 100,000 miles, I would worry about the chain.
Got it.
It's
chain driven, and you can reach it. Do you have to pull the engine for that?
Depends on the situation, or because you could do a chain swap with the engine in the car, but there's a few chains. There's a lower end, so it depends on the chain. The chain's running the cams. You could do it. It's not easy, but you could run. I mean, it would be a whole situation. But I would say
that whole slowing down, going. It depends. Sounds like the difference between an extra 30 grand or not.
I would say probably a lot of other things are going to go wrong before you ever think about your chain. Your clutch is going to be the biggest issue of this car.
So, Rusty, what's the goal with this car? Because, these guys are going to take it to, are you guys going to take it to a 10?
That's the idea. That's what
a 10 to 10?
That's what he said, so that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, but
what's the idea? Is the idea to restore, enjoy, then sell, keep? What do you want with this? I mean, what's the end game?
Restore and enjoy. I don't think no intention of concourse, or maybe it'll go to concourse, but it won't go to get awards. It'll go to sit on the lawn and look beautiful, and then be driven away at the end
and be one of 8 500 S's. But you still have. You just took it off because you're going to repaint the car, obviously.
Yeah.
You still have the little 5S somewhere.
Yep. Oh yeah, of course.
What's the little 5 emblem, the original 5 emblem worth? I mean, compare the car. That's 30 grand just for the emblem.
Yeah, well.
It's original. There's only one of 8.
Unobtainium, whatever.
It's funny. I mean that's true, and you keep saying it, and it makes it even more rare. But honestly, as far as the book and the history is concerned, like I said, it's just they changed the naming of it. Like
But how many 5000 S's were there in general? Like
3
carbureted.
345, right? 325. 323 to 325. There's varying.
That was made, and we don't even know how many exist after
of that.
all
Yeah,
this,
it was only 3 years. So 82, 83, and 84.
It's interesting because there's far more cars worth over $1 million that have more. Like the F40 and the
1400 F40s.
1400 F40 is far worth more, but it's like this car should be maybe by the end of this video or whatever, maybe by the end of the year, because car prices are going up again on exotics.
This one is floating around 400, so which is surprising still. It's
surprising, but if you look at the history, and Damian, you have more. I know we're going off subject here, but you have more experience following exotic car prices because you've been doing it longer.
If the Miuras, which are amazing, are in the $1 million range plus now, right? No matter what.
Yeah.
How can the Countach not get there? How can it not get there? When it is the car, the Countach was born, and then supercars were born.
Right. The Miura is definitely known as one of the most beautiful cars in the world, period. The Miura is always said That word Miura comes up after that sentence. What is the most beautiful car in the world? Miura. But the Countach, there's the Miura most beautiful, but the Countach has got to be the most radical looking car.
Well, it literally is the car that came up with the word supercar. I mean, there was no supercar until that car was debuted in Geneva, and then a journalist just said, that's the supercar. They coined the phrase.
That's right, just like Damian said this.
Yeah.
It started the game. I mean, the doors, the look, the wedge design. I mean,
The doors. Yeah, that's
the
right.
door,
This
you
is the
can't-
first wedged doors.
Yeah.
What do they call them? Is it wedge door? Is that the proper term?
Scissor doors.
Scissor doors. Thank you.
And I'd like to say too that we're talking about early 70s when the Countach first hit the streets. The technology, the craftsmanship to make a door do that and function properly, like you never think about it. You're never like, oh, this janky door. It's always pretty well aligned. They've lasted years and years of abuse and sitting on the car. It's really well done. And I think that's something that the Countach doesn't get a lot of credit for, but it's such a well-engineered door. It looks so beautiful and so perfect and works so well that even though it seems like a kit car, that's where it separates it.
Right.
You know?
Right. Looks like a kit car when you take it apart because you're just like a bunch of cladding of aluminum fiberglass in a tubular frame.
Yeah.
But you're right. There is a lot of engineering in this car. All right, guys. So this will probably be part one of many videos, of at least a few videos on this car on the progress while you guys are restoring it. I can't wait to get in the inside and start documenting the rebuilding of the engine because I think the engine is definitely the heart of the car. So thanks for watching, and thank you, Rusty Spragg here and Damian Barbuscia, and looking forward to making more on this car.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. Thank you. It was awesome.